Friends, today we will be discussing on functionalism. So this is a topic in anthropology, paper 1, in the section anthropological thoughts. So functionalism is a very important topic from the exam point of view. So it can be asked as a 10 marker, it can be asked as a 15 marker, 20 marker, and if you are preparing for KPSC, it can even be asked for a 60 marker question. So let's try to prepare for taking into account all these type of questions. Now, so functionalism is actually, it started off as a challenge to evolutionism and diffusionism. So evolutionism and diffusionism was a theory to explain the origin as well as the development of culture. They wanted to study how culture originated, how it developed. Both of them were rooted in historical studies. They were historically oriented. They wanted to explain culture growth, how it took place in the past, but they never tried to explain why and how development took place. Neither they studied the present culture, its features, its traits, or its function. They were only focused on the growth and the origin of culture. Now, functionalism, they postponed the study of origin, either through evolution or through diffusion. So their main role was on studying the main interest was to study the role of cultural trait and its practice in contemporary society. So therefore, they focused on the present rather than historical reconstruction. What the evolutionists and diffusionists did, they were not focused on that. They wanted to study the present culture. Now, two theories under functionalism. One is culture function, given by Brownislaw Malinowski, and the structural functionalism given by Radcliffe Brown. Both are very important from the exam point of view. Now, functionalists in general, they try to examine the social significance of various cultural phenomena. That is, their function, what function they serve in a particular society in order to maintain the society as a whole. Next, let's try to study or understand cultural functionalism that was given by Malinowski. Now, briefly about Malinowski, he was born in Poland. He was a follower of Emil Durkheim. He has undertaken a very detailed study of the Trobriand Islanders, and he wrote a book, Argonauts of Western Pacific. It is considered to be a landmark development in anthropology, and it was a turning point in the fieldwork tradition in anthropology. His main approach, or what he mainly focused on, was two things. One, all the customs, the institutions in a society, they are integrated, they are interrelated, so we need to study them in an integrated manner. That means change in one would affect the other aspects. Further, he wanted to study the function of every cultural aspects. That means he said that humans have needs, and the needs are fulfilled by culture. So humans had developed culture in order to satisfy his needs. So this is his two approach. One, study culture in an integrated manner, and study culture in the functional approach. So therefore, his theory is known as culture functionalism. Now, before we go into this theory, let's try to understand what his criticism was of functionalism. So one, he criticized the evolutionism and diffusionism because he said that both either evolution or diffusion, they try to study cultural aspects in isolation. That is, it tried to study the institution, or it studied cultural traits, or the material aspects in isolation, not in relation with each other. It did not explain further, it did not explain the function. It only studied the cultural traits without studying or explaining the function. Further, he also criticized, if you remember, evolution theory. They gave the concept of survivals. He criticized the survivals. Survivals are those cultural traits which are carried on due to habit and they had lost its function. That is what the evolutionists had said. But Malinowski says that no custom or institution is functionless. That is, he did not accept the implication that the institution can outlive its function. Unless a trait has function, it won't survive. That was Malinowski's argument. And this is the criticism of Malinowski of evolution and diffusion school of thought. Further, he defines culture and he says that according to him, cultural traits cannot be studied in isolation. So he gives his theory of integration or integration theory. That means analyze culture in integrated manner, one affecting the other. Further, he analyzed culture in different imperatives. So imperatives, he analyzed culture in different imperatives. That means the condition that must be fulfilled if the community has to survive. Either it can be instrumental, that means it is fulfilling certain use, or it is integrated, that means it is integrating the society. So every society can be studied either having its instrumental role or having integrative role. So I hope you understood. So culture feature, if you take any culture in your society, either it has an instrumental role or it has an integrative role. Let's take, for example, religion. So religion helps us to, if we are scared that tomorrow we have exam, we go and ask for God that, okay, please give us a easy paper. So it is reducing our anxiety and we are able to think properly. So that's an instrumental role of religion. Yes, religion reduces the anxiety. So that's the instrumental role that religion plays. Similarly, religion, okay, we are scared of God. So we do not want to do anything wrong because we fear that the God is going to punish us. So we will try to do good to all. This will help. I mean, this is reciprocal. So I do good, you do good, everybody does good. So it helps to integrate the entire society into one single whole. So this is an integrative role played by the religion. So therefore, every culture or cultural traits can be studied as different imperatives. That is, the requirement or absolute necessity. Either it could be instrumental or it could be integrative. Now, let's try to come to his theory of needs. In his book, The Scientific Theory of Culture, he explains what is need. So need is a system of conditions in human organism which involves satisfaction of certain biologically determined impulse in a series of vital sequences. So this is a technical definition, but what is need we already know. So need is something that needs to be satisfied, right, or fulfilled. So we are hungry, okay, so that is a need which has to be satisfied. We have to eat food. So hunger is a need. Okay, so eating food will satisfy this hunger. So he says need is this condition in human organism that involves the satisfaction of certain impulse in vital sequence. Further, he says, like animals, humans also have needs, but unlike animal, humans have devised culture to satisfy these needs. So this is his theory of needs. So we have needs, and to satisfy these needs, we have culture. Further on, he gives basic needs and the cultural responses to satisfy these needs. So for example, metabolism. The cultural response to satisfy metabolism is commissariat. Reproduction is a basic need, so we have kinship. Bodily comfort, we have shelter, safety, protection, movement, activities, growth, training. Health is satisfied by hygiene. I mean, if simple terms, let's try to understand. So we are hungry, that's a need. Okay, so this is satisfied by food. We prepare food to satisfy our hunger. So we have sexual needs. So we have marriage to satisfy our sexual needs. So this is theory of needs. Further, he classifies needs into primary needs, derived needs, and tertiary needs. So what are primary needs? Primary needs are basic needs that rises because we are an organisms. Okay, like for example, animals also have needs, humans also have needs. So these are called as primary needs. That is, needs which are common for both animals as well as humans. These are primary needs. So how man satisfy these needs? So we have invented culture to satisfy these needs. Next, derived needs or secondary needs. These arises out of requirement of collective life, or these are needs that are created by the culture themselves. So culture creates certain needs. These needs are called as derived needs or secondary needs. For example, so culture has been invented to satisfy primary needs. Now culture has to be transmitted from one generation to another. How is it transmitted? Through education, through enculturation. So this need to transmission of culture is a derived need. Similarly, we all live together, so therefore we, as a part of culture, so therefore we need to communicate with each other. Yes, so as a part of culture, we all live together. So culture has created the need for us to communicate with each other. So the response is language. When we are collectively living with each other, we have to organize our activities for which we have leadership. Similarly, culture needs to be controlled so that people behave in a particular way. So that need is social control. So how the response is? Law and customs. Right. So these are derived needs, that is need that is arising due to culture itself. Therefore, they are called as secondary needs. Then he talks about the tertiary needs. Tertiary needs arises because of requirement of cooperation and interdependence. Okay, interdependence, because of which there are certain needs. These are called as tertiary needs, integrative need, or synthetic needs. So integrative needs, for example, confidence and feeling of collective unity. So we have magic and religion. So we fear magic, we fear religion. So we all do good to each other, which brings about collective unity. Similarly, okay, we need relaxation, playing, aesthetic satisfaction. So this is brought about by aesthetics, recreation, and ceremonial activities. So this is his needs theory. So he says that there are three types of needs satisfied by culture. Next, he gives the concept of culture functionalism. So culture is a vehicle through which man satisfies his needs. Culture is an integrated whole which can be analyzed through its institutions and the functions these institutions perform. Okay, so he says that we need to study culture. Culture can be analyzed in institution and the functions it performs. See, for example, let's take the Trobriand Islanders. So where he studied the Kula system. So Kula is an institution. Okay, Kula is an institution and it performs certain functions, that is instrumental function and integrative function. So if you want to understand this Kula system, we have to study the institution and its functions, what instrumental role it plays and what integrative role it plays. So what is the instrumental role it plays? Kula system, it promotes economic activities. What is the integrative role? It brings people together. So it integrates the society. So he studied the Kula, okay, the culture of Kula, in the institutional and its functional aspects. Now let's try to study. He says the society is made up of institutions. And these institutions have charter. So what is charter? So charter is the justification or social significance of the institution. Further, institution is made up of personals, that is people with duties and privileges. And they have norms, that means the standard of conduct or behavior of these personals. And there are material apparatus, that is all the material object, non-material objects, ideas and beliefs. Then there is activities, that is range of actual behavior pattern and function. And finally, the outcome of these activities, that is the function. Let's try to understand this. I mean, it is very complicated, I understand. Let's try to understand it through an example. So, Kula system. So, in religion, we would have studied Kula, or in economic activity, we would have studied Kula, that is ceremonial exchange. So, Kula is an institution. So, what is the charter of Kula? Charter of Kula is that it is there as a part of ceremonial exchange. That is a charter. They are made up of people, that is the Kula partners in different islands. The norms, that is standard of behavior, that means they have to leave to the other island in the canoe at a particular point of time, do magic, observe certain taboos. Okay, so that's the conduct. Then they have to keep the gimwali and the red necklace and white armband for only 2 years, etc. So these are the norms. Then there are material apparatus. That means the object. So in Kula system, you have the red necklace and the white armband. And then you have the non-material ideas. That means value system. Once in Kula, always in Kula. You must remember that. So that is the idea or the belief system. And the activities, that means they go and exchange the Kula objects. And the non-Kula partners, they exchange the gimwali, that means the non-Kula, that means banana, the ham, etc. are exchanged. So these are the range of activities. And ultimately the function of Kula, that means it integrates the society. That is the integrative goal. It brings about economic activity, that is an instrumental activity. So any institution in your society also can be studied in this manner: the charter, the personal, the norms, the material apparatus, the activities and the function. So he gives this through his diagram of theory of function. He tries to explain it like this. So institution is having a charter made up of personal and norms. We create material apparatus which has activities. The activities fulfill certain functions. So this is what he says is the approach towards studying a culture through theory of function. Okay, so the society is made up of institutions. These institutions have charter. They are made up of personals whose behavior is regulated by the norms. Based on the norms, they create certain material apparatus which performs certain activities to fulfill certain functions. So every society and its institutions can be studied through this approach. Right? And each of these institutions are fulfilling a function and are integrated with each other to fulfill more functions. So therefore it has to be studied in an integrated manner. So the unit of human organization is the institutions. Yes, so it satisfies certain needs. So each institution not only fulfills certain needs but are in combination with others satisfy certain other needs. So therefore, functional interlinkage of institution keeps the whole culture integrated. He explains this in his essay, The Magic, Science and Religion. He says magic is performing the function of optimism. So tomorrow you have an exam, you perform certain magic hoping that you are going to get an easy paper. So you are optimistic, you have a good sleep, you go and write your exam well, let's match it. You must have seen, before you go to expedition, you go and visit a temple. Why? Because you are trying to bring about optimism in your journey. Similarly, the Trobriand islanders performed Kula system with an objective to integrate. If you recollect myth from your religion, myth is a story about supernatural and their deeds. So evolutionary myth is just a story. But Malinowski says myth is not just a story, it has a function. And he explains this from Trobriand islanders. He says that Trobriand islanders, there are two clans. One is Lukuba clan and the other one is Melasic. Lukuba, their totem is dog. Melasic, their totem is pig. Now there could be conflict, yes. So there could be conflict between the Melasic and the Lukuba clan. But this conflict is avoided by a myth. Once and for all, it has solved the conflict between these two clans. So the myth goes like this. So people lived underground, it seems. According to their myth, people lived underground. So not long ago, few generations back, they all came above. And this Lukuba clan or the dog clan, they ate Noku plant, which is considered to be dirty by the Trobriand islanders. Because they ate these Noku plant, they have been considered to be inferior, and the Melasic clan, they are considered to be superior. So therefore, this myth has solved the conflict, and therefore Melasic are considered superior, Lokuba is considered inferior. So the chief, when they have to appoint a chief, they come from the Melasic clan. There is no claimants from Lukuba because they are, through their myth, considered to be inferior. Similarly, if we see our caste system also, caste system had a function. That means it divided people on the basis of their birth into Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas and Shudras. So each of them had their own role. Brahmins for education, Kshatriyas for ruling, Vaishyas for trading, Shudras for agricultural and other activities. Now there could have been a conflict. Shudras could have asked, why not me? To rule the sun. Why not I become a Brahmin? So this was once and for all solved by a myth. So the myth of caste systems is that the Brahma, disintegrated himself, and from the head came the Brahmins, from the shoulders came the Kshatriyas, from the thighs came the Vaishyas, and from the feet came the Shudras. So therefore, feet is inferior. So therefore, Shudras cannot be leaders. Shoulder is strong, so Kshatriyas will be the rulers. So once and for all, it solved the conflict between the different castes, and it brought about, a system of integration in our society. So this way, every culture in the society can be studied through the theory of function. And this is what Malinowski's culture functionalism is. Now, finally, to conclude, let's try to understand the criticism of functionalism. Now, if needs are same everywhere, what gave to cultural variation? See, it does not tell us why culture variation is there. If needs are same everywhere, why did people develop different ways to satisfy them? The fact remains that one cultural function may be satisfied by various cultural means. For example, food. It satisfies the biological need of hunger. But how food is prepared, that is not explained by functionalism, because the preparation of food, whether you're a vegetarian, whether you're a non-vegetarian, whether you eat pizza, whether you eat burger, whether you eat rice, all this is having its own history. Correct, no? So if need is same everywhere, and the how it is satisfied is also same, but what gave rise to variation, that can be explained by its own history, because functionalism says no history, no historical study. Whereas if you want to understand the form, then you have to study its history. He gave primacy to function over form. So he said all cultural features has to be studied through its function and not by its form. But form has its own history. Unless we study the form, we will not be able to understand the difference or the variation. And his theory is circular argument. It says that institution functions to survive and survive to function makes it inconclusive, and confusion about the institution and their function. Further, if functioning of the institution results in culture and integrate ever-changing totality, then how can you explain culture change within the framework of functionalism? Right? So if the culture has led to integration, how do you explain culture change to functionalism? So that cannot be explained, right, through functionalism. Similarly, there are some facets of culture that goes against the maintenance of culture, like for example, the Arab Spring or any ethnic violence, communal violence. These are also cultural aspects which is going against the very maintenance of culture. So this is where functionalism fails. It cannot explain cultural change, it cannot explain cultural variation, it cannot explain some of the facets of culture which goes against the maintenance of culture. So just to give you the little bit additional points on this, so there is a theory on Neo-functionalism. They try to address these two lacunae of culture change and the negative aspect of culture. So they talk about not just cultural continuity but also social conflict. So function can be either have positive outcome or negative outcome. Positive outcome is your instrumental or your integrative, whereas the negative outcome, okay, it manifests in the form of riots, loss, communal violence, etc. And in latent effect of it is social change. Like for example, Arab Spring. The immediate manifestation is riots, loss of life, etc. Whereas the latent effect is social change. It brought about democracy. So this is how neo-functionalism tried to address some of the criticism put forward to the theory of functionalism. So I hope this video was useful in understanding functionalism. Stay tuned for other videos in anthropology. Thank you.